Hello and welcome. If you hear something in the background, that's just my friend keeping me company while I talk into the air. Alright, so today I thought I would talk about rat varieties. The sailor behind me. say.
You should hand her to me.
I don't think that'll end well. You wanna come here? Oh, baby girl. Come here. Oh. No, Heidi. Oh, God. See, I told you this wouldn't end well.
I'm not concerned with your feelings.
Alright, sailor.
Yes. Oh, yes, my friend.
Careful with the claws.
Ma'am. Hello. Here.
Hi.
Hang out.
Riffy, I'm on to you.
My friend Sailor.
Anyway, one of the perks of rats that everyone says is that they come in a variety of colors or in like a lot of things. And coat types and like all that kind of stuff, but never really talk about it too often, probably because it's hard to talk about. Like, how do you describe rats without having the rat to show people? Well, I'm going to do that today. Hey, you. Thank you. The door's closing, baby.
Ma'am? Let Sailor do the talking. Hi. She's like, you're not my mom.
Anyway, so a couple of disclaimers. One, there are a ton of rat varieties. I don't know all of them, and I probably forgot some on this list. So if you have a variety I don't talk about, sorry. Two, not all of the varieties I'm going to talk about are like official varieties, meaning they're not part of like the like American Mouse and Rat Association or the English version, which I don't remember what it's called right now. So like not all of them are show quality varieties, but they are varieties that people breed for. And then three, sorry, Sailor looks so cute right now. Three, rats don't have breeds. So all fancy rats are the same species of rat. They're brown rats. Sailor. They're brown rats that we have bred, and like most domesticated animals that are bred by humans for any amount of time, they eventually start getting all kinds of fancy colorings and differences. Don't you even think about it, madam. So they don't have breeds, they're not different species. Every fancy rat is the same. There's just not enough genetic difference between them to have different breeds. Okay, let's get into it. First off, ears. There are two types of ears. One is standard, which... Did Ruff Ruff disappear? Mm-hmm. She disappeared.
She's in the water.
Yeah. Which is just rather up top, and then there's Dumbo. A lot of people think for some reason that Dumbo rats are a different species of rat, and like I see that question a lot, is like, can Dumbo rats live with standard rats? And like, you can get litters of both. The only thing with Dumbos is they need 2 sets of the Dumbo gene to get Dumbos, but standard rats can also have 1 of the Dumbo gene. So Dumbos, it's a genetic, not mutation, probably mutation, where essentially it changes the position of the ears and the shape of the skull a little bit. And that's all. They can live perfectly fine with that.
Are you going to mention that they can't be fed after midnight or get wet?
That's all rats.
Yeah, but it's especially the Dumbos.
I guess that's true.
That's what happened to Sailor. That's why her uterus is gone.
Next we have eyes. So there's several different types of eye colors. So you have black eyes, which is probably the most common. Then you have pink eyes and red eyes, or ruby eyes, which are basically the same, except pink eyes are a little paler, ruby eyes are a little darker. And the only difference between like black eyes and red or ruby or pink eyes is pigmentation. So black eyes have more pigmentation. The less pigmentation an eye has, the paler they are. Eyed rats are where they have 1 black eye and 1 red eye. Now, a lot of people think that the black eye is also technically a ruby eye, just like a really, really deep ruby. My odd eye did not look like her eye was ruby. That's all I'll say. So, moving on. We have coat types. And coat types, there are several types. Like, let's just get into it. So the standard is your basic rat, which is a kind of smooth coat On males, it's rougher. On females, it's like softer. And this is the most common coat type. Like if you're not breeding specifically for different coat types, you're going to get standard rats probably. The next probably most commonly known one is Rex rats. I actually even, my teacher in high school, one of her rats was Rex and she got hers in pet stores. So, and a Rex coat is a curly coat with curly whiskers. And some look curlier than others. Like my friend and I both have Rexes from the same breeder and they just kind of look a little poofy. There's not a lot of curl to them. And then there's double Rex. This is where you double the Rex gene. And what happens is they become partially hairless. That's what humdrum is over here. And some look very, very hairless. Like almost like a true hairless. And some have a lot of fur. Like humdrum and my friend's rat Wicket had a lot of fur. But I also had a rat named Mercy who was like half and half. Like sometimes she looked furred and sometimes she looked hairless. Her ears were amazing though. And some people think that the double Rex, I've heard some discourse about it because when I get to hairless, which is next, I'll kind of explain why. So like, actually, let's just talk about hairless. Hairless rats are exactly what they sound like. They have no fur, they have no whiskers, they have like no eyebrows, for lack of a better word. So they're complete, like true hairless, completely smooth skin all the way down. And they have a lot of genetic problems. So they have respiratory issues, they have, I believe, kidney issues, they have skin issues, and they have eye issues. And in general, true hairless rats, on average, live about half the lifespan. I believe was it
9 months to a year?
9 months to a year. So because of these genetic issues, like, for me personally, I want to get from a breeder, even though I do think hairless are cute. I like their little bald faces. And because they have so many issues, other types of partially hairless rats are kind of thrown in with them. Like some people think double Rex is bad. And then there's patchwork rats, which are, it's kind of hard to describe them. They have lines of fur like around their eyes and nose.
Oh,
and like
exactly.
their ears and stuff. And they have genetic issues too. Also because of like the hairless genes. Next up is Velveteen, which is a type of Rex. It's a Rexoid coat. And it has like a slight curl to it. And it's also softer because a lot of Rex have like really rough texture to their fur. Mine don't because they're on the Shunamite diet. So all my babies are super soft. But Velveteen naturally is a lot softer, and they have curlier whiskers, and when you double their coat, they get really thick coats instead of like partially hairless like Rex does. There's bristlecoat, which is, yeah, I know, right? That one sounds a little weird. There's bristlecoat. It's where they're deliberately bred to have like a rougher texture to their coat. It's like a rough, harsh feeling. Like, I think it's called bristle, like to make you think of like a bristle pad. I've never felt a rat like this. I've never owned one, obviously, if I've never felt one. But one of the breeders near us used to breed them. She hasn't in a while. I don't know if her line just ended or if there's a reason. Then there's Harleys. Harleys are long coat rats. So when they're babies, they look like little poof balls. And then as they get older, like the better Harleys still kind of look like poof balls. I personally don't really care for Harleys. They look really ragged to me. Harleys also have a lot of genetic problems. So they have an issue. They have an issue processing protein essentially. And so they have a lot of skin issues that, it makes it sound like it's just like a couple of little scratches or wounds. But I've seen Harleys that like their entire back is just scabs and wounds and it's a bloody mess. And like they have a lot of issues. And basically, the way I've seen it described is Harleys have a top coat but no undercoat. And then that combined with their issues with protein makes them very itchy, and then they scratch and they injure themselves. And then there are satin rats, which they also have the curly whiskers, and they have a deeper color to them. And as the name suggests, they're super duper soft to the touch. So now that the coats are out of the way, we have colors. There's a lot more colors than coats, and there's a ton more patterns than either of the other two. So let's try to get through the colors as fast as possible. So there's the standard, like where the fancy started, which is a goodie. And a goodie is kind of like almost a pattern too, because you can apply goodie to several colors. But when people say it's an agouti rat, what they mean is a brown rat. So the brown, each hair has 3 different shades to it, which gives them this almost textured look to them. I have 2 agoutis. I'll insert a picture up here. But you can see that it's not just like a standard solid colored brown all the way down. And then there's beige, which is it's like a warm grayish color. My first rat was beige. Her name was Boo. Then there's champagne, which is kind of like beige, except it's super pale. Like to the point where the white on them looks almost the same color as the beige. It's very similar. There's fawn, which is like a golden orange color, which I also had rats that were fawn. They were so cute. There's chocolate, which is like a deep brown color. It's almost black. It's like verges on being black, but it's not quite there. You can also get chocolate agoutis, which I think is what Fifi is, but I'm not sure. But it's like it makes the agouti like a deeper, richer color. And then there's mink, which is bluish brown. I've seen they kind of scale, like I've seen some minks that were really blue, and I've seen some minks that were really dark brown. Black, which is probably, if you've owned rats for any amount of time, you've had a black rat. There's marten, which is it's like marten's a color, but like a lot of people think marten also goes with the red eyes, but you can have a black-eyed marten. I personally don't see the point of having a black-eyed marten, but it's kind of like they have like a black body, and then the gray has a lot of feathering to it, so it's a deeper color, or it can be. Like there's a lot of different kinds of martens. Like one of mine is super pale. Then you have like high white, which is where they have patches of gray and then a lot of white. And then you have the darker gray, which is what honey and bug are. Then there's the blues. There's so many different shades of blue. There's agouti, which is again where each hair has 3 different colors. Russian blue, American, I'm just reading off the list now. American blue, British blue, which is like a steel blue, Dove, which is like a pinky gray. American blue is super duper pale, and then Russian blue is like a really deep dark blue. And then you have the white rats, which you have pink-eyed whites and you have black-eyed whites. Black-eyed whites are prone to epilepsy. Close. Now we're on to patterns.
And it's still recording, so.
This is the list of patterns that I could think of off the top of my head. All right, patterns. So you have what I consider to be the most classic, which is hooded, and that's where there's color on their head and a stripe down their back. You have capped, which is where they have color just on their head. I've seen some people say that capped is not like great, but I've had a few, and I've never had issues. And I've never been able to find why people say it's a problematic variety. So I don't know about that. There's masked, where they have just color on their face, usually over their eyes or one eye. Sometimes they have just a little bit of color on their head, and that kind of throws them into a black-eyed white variety almost, where a lot of times they have epilepsy. There's variegated, where they have like speckles of color running down their back, sometimes a lot, sometimes not a ton. Variegated is probably like one of the hardest varieties to breed for. Like the people I follow who breed for variegated, they're always in for it. There's self, where they're just a solid color, like from their back to their tummy to their head, one solid color. There's Berkshire, where they have color on their tummies. So like Riff Raff up here, I don't know if you can see her at all. She's in the shadows, but she's a black Berkshire. There's Irish, where they have just color on their chests. I'm gonna have to like get Spectre and like stand her up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Like she has like a Batman pattern on her chest. It's
Cut this in with footage of you dangling my daughter, who I
won't.
gave birth to. Do it.
There's the pointeds, which is where they have a lighter color on their body that comes to a darker color on their nose, ears, and rump. So like that's Siamese. You have like seal point Siamese and blue point Siamese, and I think those are the only two. It's Burmese, which are browns. Like Siamese are white with, again, either blue points or seal points. Seal points like brown. There's Burmese, which are brown rats that come to, I think, I've seen both there's so many types of Burmese. Oh my god, I don't even know where to start. But I've seen like the classic where it's like a dark gray at the nose, and then I've seen blue. And then there's Tonkinese, which is what Hopper is. My friend has like a really good, beautiful Tonkinese boy that I'll put a picture of. Like, he's gorgeous. And then there's... See, Tonkinese has another name. There's Sable Siamese and Siamese Sable. I can never remember which one's which. But whichever one is not Tonkinese is a variety specifically from South Africa where they have like a really deep, rich point. It's like a very dark brown color. There's roans, which are, they're born with color. They use, a lot of times they have like a badger patterning where they have a wedge blaze, but they start out with color and then as they age, they fade to white. So like Orvie is roan. When I got her, she was a super solid dark black, and now she's very white. There's Essex, where the color essentially fades from their back to their stomach to like, a lot of times it's like a pale creamy color. Sometimes it's white depending on what other color they have. So basically with patterns, these have nothing to do with color for the most part and everything to do with like how the color looks on the body. So that's what it is with Essex. There's marbling, where again the color is marbled. Marbled rats have a tooth issue, or it's malcolusion, I believe is how you pronounce it, and essentially their teeth are very brittle, and sometimes it's so bad that the rat basically is starving because they just can't eat because their teeth are so messed up. You have blazed rats, which are when they have white color up their face. Like sometimes you can get a variegated that's blazed, you can get a Berkshire that's blazed, you can get a cap that's blazed, or like that kind of thing. Do I have a blazed? Ducky's blazed. I think she's a lightning blaze because it's diagonal, but it's really thick, so it's not like a good lightning blaze.
Wookie.
Yeah, Wookie has a wedge blaze.
My other daughter.
Yeah, I think technically Humdrum might be considered blazed, but it's really Humdrum and Wookie. I have really no idea what varieties they are. They're just beautiful.
Insert footage of you dangling my beautiful Wookie.
I don't dangle Wookie.
She's old.
She has more dignity than that.
She's a queen.
She's not comfortable being dangled. She'd helicopter her tail. I don't want her to do that.
You have to put your hand under her feet when you transport her.
Yeah. Oh, there's Merle, which is spotted. Merle shows up best on mink, so the bluish brown rats, but it also really pales the rat. My friend has a Merle rat. I'll put a picture of him up. He's also gorgeous. There's Silvermane, which I had no idea where to put Silvermane in this list because the Silvermane gene also softens the fur so that they're really, really soft, but it's more of a pattern than it is a coat type because it can be applied to any color, but it does change the color of their coat. So Silvermane, essentially what happens is the tips of their fur become translucent, and that's the silvering. It typically shows up better on males than females. I have a bunch of Silvermane at the moment. I have 2 in that cage, 1 in this cage. Like the silvering, it's almost like, because it's just the tips of their fur, there's almost like an undercolor to it. It's really gorgeous, and they're so soft. I love it. There's Frosted, where just the tips of their fur are white. I've never seen one in person, but one of the breeders in my area has a bunch of Frosted, and when they're babies, it's interesting because they just look like a paler version of the variety. I think it's really nice. There's Down Under, where they have color on their backs and color on their tummy and like none on their sides. And then there's White-Sided, where essentially it looks like there's a white stripe going from like this side all across their tummy to the other side. So like it's not quite hooded or variegated because it's like a solid white tummy and solid white sides. So those are all the varieties I could come up with, and they could be combined in any way because varieties are fun like that. So for example, Sailor's just a black Silvermane Dumbo. And then I have Warren, who is a American Blue, I believe. American Blue Rex Silvermane Dumbo with a blaze. Like she's got a teeny tiny blaze. And then there's like the Siamese, which are top-eared, ruby-eyed, steel-pointed Siamese. Like there's varieties. It's like every aspect of the rat's appearance becomes part of the variety. So like sometimes when you're following breeders, it's like word soup. It's just like every word you can think of, and it's insane. But yeah, obviously this isn't all the varieties. As I stated before, I can't name all the varieties because I don't know all of them. That's how many there are. So please leave a comment saying what your favorite variety is. I personally don't really have one at the moment. I know I have a lot of Silvermane and I have like a lot of Martins. It's a coincidence. It's just what happens to be available when I'm looking. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, do all the fun stuff. See you next time. Goodbye.